Well, good morning, everybody. David McLeod here from Belmont, California. And it's a day after Christmas, so happy Boxing Day to you all. Boxing Day, I know most Americans don't even know what that is, but that's an English, Canadian, those old Brit people. Those are the ones who celebrate Boxing Day. And I'm being a Canadian myself. That's one of the things that I do. So here we are on Boxing Day, and as you can see, you can count on Tommy and me to be here no matter what day of the week it is. Well, on any Friday. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking about trust and being able to count on people. So without further ado, I'm going to turn this over to my co-host and my partner, Tommy, and I'll let him introduce our special guest for the day. Welcome, Tommy. Good morning.
Good afternoon and good day, everybody. Hello, David. Good morning to you. I am actually on East Coast time today because I don't like sitting still. So I am in Virginia at my sister's home where we celebrated Christmas for the last couple days. And now today we're celebrating Boxing Day, and we've celebrated 7 days of Hanukkah and all sorts of other wonderful things. A period of celebration. And yeah, today we're going to talk about trust. Trust in whatever. We're going to just open it up for discussion and what trust means to us. And today we're joined by the lovely and amazingly intelligent Beata Lewis. Beata is among many things, an executive coach and a great friend of mine, and we're excited to have Beata here joining us. Beata, why don't you say hello to the folks and tell us a little bit about trust and what we're going to be talking about today.
Well, hello, happy Boxing Day, happy Celebration of Life Day, as David said earlier. I'm really delighted to be here. Thank you both for inviting me. I'm so happy to be talking about trust with you today because it's one of the topics that is sort of at the core of everything. And when we're moving towards a new year and wondering what's in store for us and moving towards the unknown, it's this wonderful balance between what do I trust and what can I control, and how will I move with this well? How will I move in relationship to life in a way that I love life and love what I'm creating in my life. So this is one of my favorite topics and the core of my practice as a coach.
Yeah, that's great. And as you were speaking, I realized that there's a lot of people in the world, and I even see this on television shows or whatever. They often say, don't trust anybody.
Yeah.
Have you heard that? Don't trust anybody.
Yeah.
And I think that is so backward. That is so messed up. I think it's just the opposite, personally. I think trust is one of the greatest gifts I can give anybody, and it's certainly one of the greatest gifts I can receive from somebody. When someone gives me that gift, the message underneath that is, I think they're saying to me something like, I'm trusting you with my heart and my soul. I'm giving this to you to hold, and I know that you will hold it with love and compassion and gentleness, and you will take good care of me. That's what I think the ultimate gift is all about. And I don't really understand why it is that so many people are so afraid of trust. Can you tell us a little bit about that, Beata?
Yeah. So one of the things about trust is it's kind of like love. It's one of these concepts that is huge, enormous, right? Like, I trust, I'm trustworthy, you're not trustworthy, this is trustworthy, that's not trustworthy. It's big, and we usually paint it with a big, wide brush. But as with most things, including love, there are some really fine distinctions about, how love is with this and how love is with that, and how you build it and how you break it. Same with trust. So there are a couple of distinctions that I think are really helpful when we think about trust. One is that there are two basic kinds of trust in the world at all. One is basic trust, and the other one is authentic trust. Now, what's the distinction between them? Basic trust is the basis of everything, right? Like, you trust that the ground will be there when you put your foot out, right? And you trust that the water you drink won't be poison. And you trust that people, when you're driving down the streets, they will honor the traffic rules. They're sort of basic contracts of our whole life, right? That if we couldn't take these things for granted, it would be completely exhausting to live every single day. Mm-hmm. basic trust is relatively open-ended and indiscriminate. It's sort of how we trust life. But when we get into really the distinctions about building trust and restoring trust, we're looking at something else generally, unless society has collapsed, which fortunately we have not experienced in this country yet, and I hope ever. But the second one is authentic trust, and that's really focused on relationships. And often we think about trust as a thing of, single transactions, like I'll give you this if you give me that. But it's actually bigger than that. When we're talking in negotiations or in civil life, we're talking about a relationship. Can I trust you? Can I trust this? And it exists entirely in its particulars, in its specific instances. So trust is really a practice. It's not an entity, and it's not a state of things like a static thing. It's a dynamic. And what's really important about trust is it's mostly about action. It's about particular actions that we take in relationship. It's the basis of our commitments. Commitments made, commitments honored. So when people say, don't trust this, don't trust that, it's sort of a distraction, because we can't actually exist except that we trust something. So I have a funny story. It's not very funny, but it's funny in the sense of, a friend of mine, we were talking about trust, and she said, I was talking with a guru who said, make your business arrangements, make your relationships so you don't have to trust. And that comes back to what you've just said, David, right? Like, don't trust. It's a little bit different, but it's related. Don't trust, you don't have to. Or set it up so you don't have to trust. And I'm curious what that actually means, right? Like, what would that mean to a herd animal, which we all are, that you could actually have even one moment of not trusting? You're actually saying, trust something else, right? Trust something else. If you can't trust this, so something else, and control that. Because you won't trust it, so you're turning away from, like, I can let that go on sort of autopilot. I know how that's going to be, and you're turning to something else. But you actually always are orienting to what you can trust.
Well, let's talk a little bit about what we can trust in relationships, because that's kind of what we're here for. And you said trust is an agreement. It's a kind of a contract. It's it's a mode of being between, let's call it people, and we're trusting people, not. And so, where can we go there? We could go, the don't trust anybody. That to me is a glass half empty, mentality of being in a mode of fear, being in a mode of not trusting, and being in a mode of constant comparison and competition. And what I heard you say, the authentic trust is what we're looking at here. We're talking about that openness, and that we talk about authentic love, and being real and being authentic, and that's what we're here talking about in Life Matters. So let's how do we do that? How do we stay in authentic trust? How do we create authentic trust? And if it gets broken, what do we do to restore it? Those are three big questions. But let's start with, in a relationship, what is authentic trust? Is it a two-way street? Is it a one-way? How do we kind of get into that authentic mode of trust?
Well, Tommy, as you were talking, one of the things that came up for me was, it seems that first of all, you mentioned fear, and I think that trust and fear are very, very close cousins. They tend to go together very well. When I feel fearful, I am less inclined to trust. When I'm feeling open and expansive and full of love, then trust is a very easy thing for me to practice. That's what I've noticed for myself. Now, that may not be true for everybody, but I think that there's a definite close relationship between those two. But the other thing is, and Beata mentioned this early on, it has something to do with creating contracts. And I think that the contract idea is really, that's another word for commitment. When I make a commitment to somebody and I follow through, and I do what I say I'm going to do. In other words, my thoughts, my words, my actions, and my feelings are all in alignment, When I am in integrity, I create trust for me within the people around me. When I slip out of integrity, I risk losing that trust unless I'm willing to take accountability for my lack of follow-through or whatever. That's kind of how I see it. So all of these things are kind of tied together in a really kind of a tight ball. You know, you've got fear, you've got trust, you've got integrity, and you've got accountability. I mean, all of them kind of tie together. That's kind of how I see it.
You know, I love what you're both saying, and one of the things that's really true about trust is we all define it differently. And we all have a strong emotional relationship with whatever we think trust is.
Right.
And we also have some really clear definitions of what is not trust, right? What breaks trust. And when I was in law school many years ago, there was a card that I found by the artist, the cartoonist Boynton, and it was the picture of a shark with a little T-shirt on, and on the T-shirt it said, "Trust me." And I thought that was the funniest T-shirt, because there I was in law school, which we code-named Shark School. And so, you know, we have a really ambivalent relationship with everything where we think trust matters, right? And so, for example, we want to be able to trust lawyers because, you know, they're the leaders of a particular kind of system, right? And on the other hand, you know, the biggest lawyer jokes are how you can't trust lawyers. It rhymes with liars. And so, you know, it's we have an ambivalent relationship and a paradoxical relationship with trust, and it's many layered. But I'll come back to what Tommy started with, was the question of what happens when we break trust. How do we heal from trust? Well, the most obvious thing, right, the most evident even to a child, is when trust breaks, you say you're sorry, right? You come with "I'm sorry." But then there's also the sorry, and we all know that didn't land. And why didn't it land? Because we're looking for nonverbal cues that tell us this person is sincere, this person gets it. They're not just being flippant and you're trying to weasel out. They actually get, with some quality of empathy, that there's harm or some hurt, and they're sorry. And they're also committing to be reliable going forward. So one of the things about when you want to build trust, you want to think about three things. If you're talking about transactional trust, the kind of, you know, this for that, building blocks, trust is built one block at a time. One block at a time. And that's the particulars. And then, unfortunately, just like with a child's blocks set, once you've built that wonderful block tower, how is trust broken? One swipe at a time, right? And what happens? The whole tower comes down. And then how do you rebuild trust? It's one block at a time. So it doesn't just come up and down like the whole tower. You actually have to devote your energy to one block at a time. So what can we give these blocks a name? I have 3 C words for the names on those blocks. You want to know what they are?
Yes, please.
Sure.
Okay. So what they are is they're 3 ways that we build our capacity for having unguarded interaction. And that's really the key here. Unguarded, like when we are not feeling totally defensive and protective, but we can be less guarded. So 3 C's. One is competence trust. Right? I trust your competence. When you say you'll do what you're going to do, you'll do it to the way that you said you'd do it. Right? You're competent to deliver. Another one is contractual trust. We actually have an agreement, and we understand what that agreement is, even if it's not an explicit agreement, it's an implicit agreement, but it's the agreement of I won't hurt you and you won't hurt me. Or if I hurt you, I will do something to make reparations and you will do something, right? So we have various contracts. So competence trust, contractual trust, and let's just look at those two for a second. In our society, those two kinds of trust are what's most emphasized, right? We mostly think of trust as you'll do what you'll say you'll do. I can rely on you to do what you'll say you'll do. So that's competence and contracts. But there's a third C, and this is the one where, in my experience working with business leaders and formerly working as a lawyer and also as a mediator, this is the one where we as a society fall down most. It's communication trust. And one of the things around communication trust is I'll say what's so when it's so, or I will communicate in right timing for what's true and what will be productive to help this situation.
Yeah, and that I can't. Can you guys hear me? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
You're on. You're on.
All right. Yeah, I mean, back to that communication. Everything when I'm hearing and listening to trust, there's always the element of me, right? Not about me trusting somebody else, but I have to become trustworthy myself. I have to be trusted. It's about me doing things that make me trusted, and that's where you build your strength and your power. And as you yourself become knowing that you've got integrity and you're authentic and you're trustworthy, you're impeccable with your word, you're being truthful. The other thing that comes is that when you're in that clarity of being trusted and truthful, you can then see when people aren't being so. And so then you know who to trust and how to trust them, because when we're caught in the drama of not being trustworthy or not being in integrity, or those of having broken trust or breaking trust, you can't see, right? You're kind of blinded by it, and you can't see the truth that's out there. So I'm always taking this back to myself and looking at myself and how can I be trusted. And Miguel Ruiz, we talk about him often, right? David, how to be impeccable with your word. That was a tough one for me, but I worked on that for myself.
Yeah. There's an interesting point here. That something I believe about trust is, excuse me, I create trust by trusting. And what I'm basically doing is I am going within and I'm going to say, okay, what is it about this person or this relationship or this situation that I can trust? That's a very powerful question that I find I am able to ask myself, and it's very beneficial to me, because when I answer the question, I realize everybody is trustworthy on some level, even if it means that I can count on them excuse me, to always violate their word. If I can count on them to always fail to deliver on their promises.
Yeah.
In some way, they are being consistent in their own belief system, and I may not fully understand their belief system. It's like that story you were talking about, the shark, and that reminded me of another story about a little kid who found a snake that had been hurt. And so the kid took the snake home and nursed it back to life and cuddled it and took care of it. And then after the snake got all healthy, the snake basically bit the kid and the kid died. And when the kid went to heaven, I guess the snake went to heaven too, and the kid was talking to the snake, well, I don't understand that. I was taking good care of you. I helped you. I brought you back to life, and then you bit me. Why did you do that? And he said, because it's my nature.
Snake does what snake does.
Yeah, so we have to learn to trust at the level that someone is able to be trustworthy. That's a really important point, and something that's really hard for most of us to do.
I love what you're saying right now. And so really, the trust is in our nature, and is our nature to seek trust and to be trustworthy, and to also to protect ourselves from what we don't trust. what you said, Tommy, is really important about the capacity to trust that we build in ourselves. And a teacher of mine said, if you can say, when you're saying to somebody else, right, look, what's happening with my hand, if you would just shape up, everything would be so much better, right? If you can say that, right, the one finger's pointing to the other person, but at least 3, maybe 4, are pointing back to yourself, no matter what it is. And so if this is what you're saying, if you would just shape up, my life would be so much better, then you can count on it. The work has to start right here.
Absolutely.
And that's with trust too. So in any situation where trust is breaking, we actually have to come to the realization that we don't control other people.
Yep.
We can only control our own responses and how we choose and how we consciously choose for the next thing. And then that takes us into what you were saying about really trusting the nature of things, right? What are you trusting for? And what kinds of boundaries are you going to put on things? You don't just trust your 15-year-old to get into your fanciest car and drive off, right? You actually, there's a way that you train and establish trust.
Yep.
And there are also things about how you heal from trust breakdowns. And this is the thing that I think is where it's so important in our personal lives and in our business lives, because we want to trust. At our very deepest nature, we want and need to trust. But life doesn't deliver always trustworthy things or always trustworthy instances and people. And so what do we do when trust breaks? And this happens at work, it happens with our families, it happens with our deepest relationships. Who have you ever been in relationship with where trust didn't break? It always does, even in a small way. And so how do we get better and more discerning and with more distinction so that we can rebuild trust when it does break? So that you can live with that kind of less guarded interaction and feel more expressive, self-expressive, and at ease, and sort of the grace of life moving with you. That's the real key.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
And there's actually a whole process for healing from trust that is really wonderful that I teach.
Oh, great. Well, one of the things, as you were speaking, I just realized, you know, there's 2 parts to the trust equation.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if trust breaks, the question is, did I break the trust or did the person I'm in relationship break the trust? And so in either case, I am affected one way or the other.
Yeah.
And it's really up to me to take responsibility when I break trust, and it's hopefully a way for me to speak to the other person in a compassionate, loving way when he or she breaks trust. That's part of the whole process of growing and developing. What do you think, Tommy?
Yeah, you're on the third C that Balta brought up earlier, and that's the communication part. And that's the hardest thing, right? Especially if you're in a close relationship or something tight, and things start to break down. Something happens here, something happens there, and you feel like the trust is being eroded. To actually be able to have the clarity and again the presence to talk about it and to communicate about it without the judgment, without the pointing fingers, to kind of build an element of trust without calling the other person out or eroding more trust. It's a tricky game. So, and again, personally for me, I had to really get clear inside myself. I had to really behave with a lot of integrity, a lot, very, very clear with my words, very truthful and honest. I even stopped telling white lies for the most sake, just because that was how I had to deal with myself,
Right.
to root it out. But to build that, you can only be responsible for your half of the relationship, is what we're saying, right? You can't control the way the other person's going to react. So it's up to me to be as truthful, as trusting, full of integrity, as transparent, and as accepting too as I can be.
Yeah,
I want
and
to say something about that piece.
The communication subject is a very important one, and I know it's something that we're going to address in a different a different topic, or maybe a series of other topics. I don't know. What I'd like to do is I'd like to get back to that process that Beata was talking about. Beata, you talked about some kind of a mechanism that you have for helping people to heal broken trust. You want to share a little bit about that with us?
Yeah, so this is before I go into that, I want to just say one thing about what Tommy said. There's a distinction between blind trust and conscious trust. And it's such an important one, because if, blind trust is actually foolish. Mm-hmm. And none of us want to be fools. And we don't want to be taken for fools, and once bitten, twice shy, and all those things. We have to really distinguish what will establish trust that's grounded and reliable and authentic and durable in the sense that it will respond with life. And that's what this process around healing trust is very much about. And it's at the core of it, it's about your capacity to trust, building your capacity to trust. And this process is shaped in the shape of a spiral, and was developed by Dennis and Michelle Reyna, and is published in a book called Trust and Betrayal in the Workplace. So the idea here is that you're looking at a difficult situation where trust was betrayed. And the first step is review what happened. Just review what happened. And then the second step is feel your feelings. Mm-hmm. Now in the workplace, the second step is already dangerous, right? Because we're not encouraged to feel our feelings in the workplace and actually talk about them. So that's an interesting thing. And then the third thing is get support. Get support. Wow, why would you need to get support? Because if trust is really broken, you need perspective, you need a way of seeing things in a different way. A third thing is to take responsibility. That's the fourth thing. So the fourth thing is taking responsibility and looking at, what did you learn from this? In every one of these trust breakdowns, there's an opportunity to learn something else. The sixth step is probably the most difficult step for most people, which is forgive yourself and others. Forgive. Oh my God, right? Forgive yourself and others. This is, forgive them for what? Forgive them to what, right? And then the final thing is let go and move on. How many people do we know cannot let go? They have to keep turning the wheel of the time that, whenever that was. You did this and you did that. And they need to sort of bring it up again. And there's one teacher who says, humans are the only people who will punish themselves and each other for a transgression endlessly. Can we allow for forgiveness?
Yeah. So Beata, go through those. I think there's 5 or 6 steps again. Just speak the main, tell them again. So if anybody's taking notes, they can get the whole series.
Well, I took notes. I was taking notes here. I got review what happened. Feel your feelings.
Take a look at what happened.
Review what happened. Feel your feelings. Look at what we can learn. Forgive
the next one is hang on.
And move on.
Third one is the third one is get support.
There we are. That's the one.
Third one is get support. Getting support is really critical. It's especially critical for people who love to control things, who know a lot or know everything. Getting support is really key, because that's going to help open and soften the space for trust to come again, instead of hardening around I know and I'm right? So then take responsibility is number 4. And then 5, see what you can learn from this. What can I learn out of this situation? What's the gift here? And the gift is never trust again. That's never the gift, right? There's something actually there that helps you trust again. So then the 6th thing is forgive yourself and forgive others.
Yeah, I think
And
number
then the
6.
7th step is let go and move on.
Okay, now I got it.
Beata, thanks so much. Yeah, that was beautiful. Thanks so much for being here. We actually just flew through 30 minutes of time. I can't believe it's gone so quickly. But thanks so much for joining us today and talking about trust. We could talk about trust for weeks. It's such a deep topic, yeah. And you've got your work cut out for you there, as that's your main heartfelt gift to the planet, is to help with the trust issue. So thanks for doing that.
You're welcome. And in fact, I just can only say thank you for opening the space for us to have this conversation and just touching the tiniest little bit of snow on the tip of the iceberg.
It is.
Would it be all right for me to mention that I actually have an offer?
Yep, you can introduce yourself for that. Go ahead. I was gonna ask you about that. Go ahead.
Okay, good. It's called Lead in Trust. And if you go to leadintrust.com, this is an online course that I'm offering at the in January of this coming year. And if you go to leadintrust.com, you can find out all about it. But we will really have an opportunity to dig into these things and really make it relevant in the things that matter in your life moving forward right now where you're leading. And it's going to be great. We're going to focus on valuing trust, renewing trust, and leading in trust. It's going to be awesome.
Oh, that sounds pretty awesome for sure. And I'm sorry, where did you say that was going to be?
It's going to be online, so anybody anywhere in the world can do it.
Awesome.
And you can find information about it at leadintrust.com.
I posted that on our chat box there. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Beata. I really appreciate it. It's been an awesome conversation. And folks, next week we're going to be talking about our preparations for the new year, and in a way that I think Tommy's going to be having some fun with this one. It's called 3 Wishes. So we're going to have fun with that. And meanwhile, I hope you guys have a great remaining week of holiday, and I'll see you all next week.
Love you all. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye, Beata. Thank you.
Peace.